Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone who's joined in today. So we'll just wait for a minute more for more people to join in. I can see some people trickling in. But in the meantime, just quick, just to go over some of the housekeeping rules. You can use the Q&A section to ask any questions, and towards the end of this session today, I will be answering those questions. In case I do not have the time or for any reason I'm not able to answer that question, I'll be sure to follow up with an email. And this recording will be available to you. We will upload this so you can also have the recording to view or look at it later as well. Okay, so I think we can get started. I'll just be going over the basics of, what we have to offer here at HYCU. So today's topic revolves around the sovereignty and control, which has become really, really critical, especially in the areas like Europe and, also a lot in the APJ regions, where a lot of different compliances, a lot of regulations have come in place to ensure that all organizations have to have control over the critical data, especially with something like Microsoft 365, which has a lot of email data, a lot of critical confidential files. It's always best to have a version and a copy of that in the customer's control to stay compliant with these regulations and, from a general compliance and security perspective as well. So this is what we're going to be discussing in terms of how you can, have that control and be compliant with any kind of sovereignty requirements with your M365 backups. So just a very quick overview of what HYCU does. The HYCU's mission statement is build a safer world through universal protection of data. And when I say universal protection of data, we'll definitely be discussing more on that. But basically, it's all the data estate and all the different workloads that an organization has, and that's a lot of data that's scattered around the landscape of every organization. Sometimes there are 200 SaaS apps that organizations use, and that's a lot of data that's actually scattered across the web, which is what HYCU really is out there to as a mission to protect and to protect that data for the organizations to keep it under their control. So HYCU is one of the fastest SaaS data protection platform. We've got about 4,600 customers across 78 countries with 450 plus channel partners across the globe, and we've been backed by some of the some of them like Bain Capital, Acru, Octa Ventures, Cisco Investments, Atlassian. So we've been backed by quite a few of the large names in the tech space. And in terms of industry recognition, you can see we've got some of very large customers in the US and across the globe generally. And we also are very proud of the Net Promoter Score of 91, which is the highest in the data protection industry. And we've also been recognized as a visionary in the Gartner's Magic Quadrant for fourth year in a row. And then we've also been recognized and awarded by the likes of Google and GigaOM as well. Okay, so now the first thing that I want to discuss and bring up here is to understand and to sort of, to kick things off, kick this whole discussion off, is to understand why we're actually even having this discussion, right? Why data protection is even important. And I'm very sure most of us that are joining this session today know at some degree that M365 has a lot of critical information. And we also probably know a lot about the shared responsibility model that Microsoft has. But what I want to also show here, in addition to that, is the kind of incidents that are happening across the globe. These are, of course, just a few snippets of all the different data incidents happening across the globe, which could be a result of some cyber attacks, it could be a result of insider threats, it could be human error or any kind of accidental deletions. As you can see in the case of Google Cloud, in one of the cases, they accidentally deleted Unisuper's entire tenant, which is, a major blunder, I would say. And they did lose a lot of data. And that, of course, resulted to a lot of financial loss as well, right? So the point here is that incidents do happen even today. And regardless of how much ever we try, it could be, trying to, keep ourselves safe from attackers or insider threats or even human error or some sort of automation that's running in the background. Incidents will happen and do happen. And data loss is a very real thing. And organizations at the end of it, whether it's Microsoft or Google, They will protect you to a certain degree, but beyond that point, it is the organization's responsibility to safeguard that data and safeguard the business as a whole from any kind of financial damage. So let's look at typically what do organizations require, right? There are three things. One thing is the first one is visibility into all the apps. And as I was saying, there are, sometimes up to 200 applications in the entire landscape. And the IT team or the business sometimes, and in most cases rather, does not have that visibility. They don't even know that there's so many different workloads in which there's fragmented data kept in across all these different workloads out there. And then the second thing is complete protection and rapid recovery, which essentially is to protect that data estate, to ensure that even if there's data scattered across 100 data points or workloads, we need to ensure that the data is protected in the way that if something happens, if the data is lost, they should be able to recover that. And the third thing, which is very critical for today's discussion, is the control and ownership of that data. To take that data while you're protecting it, it should not still lie with a third party, because if at the end of it, as you saw on the previous screen, third party risks are very real. Incidents do happen, whether it's Microsoft, Google, or any big company as well, that does happen. So taking control and ownership of that data, keeping that with you, is something that's growing as a very, very critical requirement across the world, especially in areas like, in regions like in the Europe and a little bit in like Australia or many other regions which are very strict about ensuring that you have ownership and control. And that's what we're going to be sort of focusing on and zeroing in on today. All right, so now let's talk about M365. Now, M365, as we know, is a super critical workload. The amount of data, the kind of data that M365 holds is very, very critical, right? So it manages your communication with teams, it manages all your files with something like your OneDrive and SharePoint, it manages your emails, your notes, your tasks, all of it. And that's a lot of data that's actually kept. So if tomorrow, if the data were to wipe off and not exist, it could cripple your entire organization's operations. People wouldn't know what to do. People wouldn't know how to talk to each other. People wouldn't have access to any of their emails, any of the files they're working on, their Word documents, their presentations, nothing, right? So that really highlights the criticality and the importance of protecting this. And I'm sure several organizations, most organizations in the world now recognize that this is very, very important to be protected. And that's what we'll be talking about today as well, as to why it's important and how you can protect it with HYCU. So what does the right solution look like? I mean, there's about 90 to 100 different vendors out there protecting M365. It's not a new thing, right? I'm sure everybody knows at least 3 to 4 names that, of vendors that protect this particular workload. But there are a few things that we, in our discussions with our customers over the past many months and a couple of years, in fact, have boiled down to understand what's really critical, what does the right solution look like, and what do we need to build to sort of satisfy those requirements that the customers have. The first and most important thing there is coverage. Of course, you need to ensure that the solution you're working with is able to back up across your entire M365 workloads, right? So it'll be Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Planner, OneNote. All these are critical workloads which hold a lot of important data, and that needs to be covered. Second thing is control, which is the key concept of this entire session, where the whole aspect of sovereignty and residency comes into the picture. Because even though you are backing it up today or you are protecting it in some way, it's still sitting on somebody else's storage. It's still sitting in somebody else's control. What we want customers to do, or what we are trying to help them to do, is to bring that into their control and in their infrastructure and under their ownership. The third thing is ease of management. Of course, you want to make sure that it's very easy to manage. You don't need to have a lot of manual tasks every day or every once in a week, twice a week. You need to come and do some manual tasks, right? It has to be very simple, automated. Try and consolidate as much, protection that you can. So if you're doing M365 and then you're also doing, let's say, something like an Entra ID or other Microsoft services, it all has to be very simple to manage all of it from one single screen. Then we have immutability, which is now becoming a really, really critical requirement because as the ransomware attacks are growing across the globe, Immutability is the key or the primary way to tackle that and to stay secure. So immutability on HYCU essentially ensures that your backups cannot be touched, cannot be tampered with at all, cannot be encrypted in any way, and that you can confidently and safely recover from these backups, even if you have a ransomware attack. Then we have advanced data recovery. Of course, it's very important that you are able to find that particular email or that particular file that you want to recover instead of recovering things in bulk, right? It has to be that easy. It has to be that smart enough for you to recover exactly what you want. Then protection beyond M365. And that's where HYCU's role really comes in, because we protect over 90 different workloads and a lot of them in the Microsoft ecosystem itself, and which we'll discuss more towards the end of the session. Then finally, we have low cost of total cost of ownership, which essentially means you don't have to pay or have a very high cost of ownership from the perspective of you have to pay in addition to your subscription costs for backing up, you also need to pay for your storage to your vendor, or some premium costs, or 10 different hidden costs. So it has to be really simple, and it has to be very, very minimal. Now, just to quickly introduce the solution that HYCU has, now that we know what the right solution looks like and what customers are really looking for, just a quick, couple of things to highlight in the solution that we are working on. The first and most important thing is complete freedom and control with customer-owned storage, right? This is essentially what enables customers to satisfy any kind of sovereignty requirements or residency requirements. Essentially, in this case, what happens is customers bring their own storage, keep their backups in their own storage, in whichever location they want, in whichever storage tier they want, in whichever storage provider they want. There's total freedom and complete control over the backups, and they own the backups themselves. Second thing is the mutability aspect, as I was mentioning. It's very important to ensure that you're safe from any kind of ransomware attacks. Then we have flexibility, which basically ensures that you can run the backups the way you want. You can do the recoveries the way you want, right? So you want to run backups twice a day, or you want to run backups once a week. It's completely up to you. It's all configurable. You have total flexibility in terms of how you want to structure the backups for each workload, in fact, and how you want to recover that. And finally, we also protect much more beyond just Microsoft 365 in, up to like 90 different workloads from a single pane of glass. So just to again go over, just to take a, get a quick overview of what the capabilities look like when we're talking of M365 protection. First one is backup autopilot. As I was mentioning, everything's automated, right? So we work on policies. So once you set up a policy, which will define how often you want to back up, how long you want to retain these backups for, if you want to have multiple copies, everything is just based on your configuration of the policy. Once you set and assign the policy, it's all automated. You don't have to do any manual tasks. You don't have to have your IT team sitting on this every week and trying to figure things out. It's all automated. You'll come back to HYCU only when you want to recover some amount of data, but everything works in the background as an autopilot. Then we have flexible retention. The retention, we understand that can be very different for every organization. Some organizations that I've spoken to have wanted to retain their data for 20 years. Some of them only look at a 1-year retention period, right? So it's very flexible. Again, with HYCU, you can actually have unlimited retention, right, from a few weeks or a few days to till however long you want, right? So it's completely flexible. And advanced search, as I was also saying, is to easily go through all these different emails, files, and find the exact particular data that you want to recover, and only be able to do that. And of course, you can also do it in bulk. You can recover sites in bulk. You can recover accounts fully in bulk. So it's completely up to you. And again, granular recovery, recovering exactly what you require or in bulk. And then offline export. So in case M365 goes down, you should still be able to have access to your data, which is essentially exporting offline to your storage. So you can get instant access to that data, even if, let's say, your M365 tenant is down or there's some issue with, let's say, Azure or a Microsoft service, you should still be able to continue your operations with that data that you've exported, and you can start using that. So you'll have access to your files or emails until the service is back up again. Now let's double click a little bit on the sovereignty aspect and how the whole storage and the whole control aspect really is what something that HYCU brings to the table, right? So with HYCU, only you own and access your data, no matter what. Throughout the entire process of right from backing up or fetching your data from your M365 tenant till the time it is being stored, HYCU does not touch that data at all. It's all within running within your infrastructure. You bring your storage, you bring your infrastructure. Everything is run on yours and owned by you. We only ensure that we are orchestrating this process in the most easiest way possible. So there are multiple, storage options. You can bring in your Amazon S3, you can bring in your Azure, Google Cloud, or even Dell, and you can bring your own storage depending on whatever storage class you prefer, depending on whatever region you prefer. It's completely up to you, right? And with Dell, we also integrate with Dell Data Domain, which essentially, helps you get access to advanced deduplication and compression. And all of this can be immutable. So we support immutability across all these different storage options. So you can ensure that your backups are always immutable. And in the case of a ransomware attack, you can easily recover from that. And the other thing that HYCU really helps customers with is to avoid that premium storage, a charge that typically other vendors do. So most vendors that have managed storage are going to charge a premium on that storage that they're going to consume, that you're going to consume on their service, which is something that you don't really have to pay for. That's ideally, that's not something. It's they're not giving you any value add on that, right? The primary thing that they want to offer is the backup solution, but on top of it, what you're paying also is that premium for that storage, which is completely uh, unnecessary, right? But with HYCU, what we're trying to also do here is by bringing your own storage, you will actually be avoiding paying that premium to other vendors, and you can actually manage the storage the way you want. You can secure the storage the way you want and keep it just, you can even optimize the costs. It's completely up to you on the storage front, right? And as I was saying, we do integrate with Dell. So we integrate with Dell Data Domain, which can with DDVE and also Data Domain on the on premises. So basically, over here you can leverage, advanced deduplication and compression. We've seen some really high compression rates with something like M365, and you can in fact actually save on your costs and your storage requirements if you leverage your DDVE storage. And we are the only vendor that integrates with Dell Data Domain. Now, the other question, which is very important, and as we know, of course, your M365 data is very critical. It has a lot of confidential information. It always needs to be secure, right? And that's completely something that we understand and that we work towards. At HYCU, we have several different ways in which we secure these backups and ensure that you're compliant and that your data is always safe, right? So some of the things are end-to-end encryption. So your data, all your backups can be encrypted. And if you choose to encrypt, you can bring in your own encryption key, or you can use a HYCU managed encryption key. But essentially, what it ensures is that right from when the data is being pulled from the storage, from the source, which is your M365, and in transit, and while it is being stored in your storage finally, it's always encrypted at every stage of the journey, which basically means that even if somebody gets access to that data in transit or in within your storage, it's still going to be encrypted and they will not be able to make, any use of it. Then we have multiple copies. So you can actually have not just one primary copy being stored on your primary storage. You can actually have up to 3 copies stored in 3 cloud providers altogether. So let's say you can have your primary one as an Amazon S3 bucket where you're going to store all your primary backups. You can then have a secondary backup that can be stored in your Azure and a third tertiary that can be stored in your Google Cloud. So that amount of redundancy ensures that even if the service is down, let's say even if tomorrow AWS is down, your bucket is down and not accessible, you cannot recover from that, you still have your Azure. And then even if something happens to that, you still have your Google Cloud, right? Or it can also be, in the form of different storage tiers. So you can have your primary in a more active storage and have a archive copy in like an archive storage. So it's completely up to you, but we give that redundancy and ensure that even if the primary goes down, you have more copies to recover from. Then we have things like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, role-based access control to secure the access to the HYCU R-Cloud platform itself. And we integrate with many different SSO tools. It could be Okta, Entra ID, your AWS IAM. There's a bunch of different things that we support. And you can bring your SSO tool, you can configure that, add your own security policies, and ensure that authentication and authorization on the HYCU platform is as per your security standards. And of course, with role-based access control, you can add your members and give them specific roles and permissions on HYCU. So, nobody can do recoveries or backups without your knowledge. Then finally, again, we have the ransomware proof protection, which is basically immutability. And as opposed to most other vendors that do offer immutability, HYCU is very different in the sense that we do actual storage level immutability, right? So these are worm locked backups at a storage level or at an object level, which cannot be tampered with. Typically, what happens is what most vendors provide is more on a soft lock or an API level, which can be overridden. Let's say if you get admin access or in the API, if somebody is able to infiltrate and change something or send some commands, they can actually remove that lock on the backups because all this is sitting on the vendor storage, right? But with HYCU, since you're bringing your own storage, you have complete control over the storage, the way it is being, the way the immutability is happening, and the way these backups are secured, and they're all object locked at a storage level, not a soft lock or an API level lock, right? So this is how we sort of secure and ensure that your data is always secure with HYCU, and that your backups are always secure and you can confidently recover from them. Now, beyond M365, right? Beyond M365, there are so many different things that we can protect. Of course, HYCU supports over 90 different workloads, much beyond the Microsoft ecosystem as well. But within the Microsoft ecosystem, I'm sure you must be using quite a few of these services. You might be using your Entra ID, you might be using your Azure VMs or Azure SQL, blob storage, or even GitHub for that matter, which holds a lot of IP, right? So all of these different Microsoft services can be protected on HYCU from the same dashboard and can all be managed easily with a single view, right? And beyond that, as I was saying, we support over 90 different workloads, right? From your on-prem infrastructure to cloud to all the different SaaS applications as well. Like if you have Box or if you have, as I said, GitHub or GitLab or DocuSign, Okta, anything, there are so many different services that our customers actually use. And one of the key differentiators or the key advantages of working with HYCU is that you get to consolidate all of the protection under single roof and easily protect all of them without managing too many different vendors or too many different applications. Finally, to sum things up, let's take a look at what the summary looks like. The first thing that you will get by working with HYCU R-Cloud for your M365 protection is one, and very important, you will be avoiding any kind of vendor lock-in or overpaying for that premium bundle storage. The second thing is you'll of course be meeting your governance and sovereignty and residency requirements because you bring the storage, you control everything. HYCU does not touch your data. We simply orchestrate. So we do not store any of your data. You own it. You can secure it the way you want, and you can always be compliant with any kind of regulations that you have. Then you have shielding your backups from attacks with the immutability. So you can be safe from any kind of ransomware attacks, which is now very common, by the way. A lot of companies have some sort of attacks going on. There's a lot of social engineering happening, a lot of phishing attacks actually, happening, and it's picking up a lot. So you can always be sure that there's a safe, immutable copy in your storage you can always recover from. Then you can also leverage the Dell DDVE. If you're a Dell customer and if you have Dell data domain, you can leverage HYCU to store your M365 backups on your Dell appliances, which will basically give you the advantage of the deduplication and compression that Dell Data Domain has to offer. Then we have consolidating all of the different workloads, as I was saying. You have 90 different workloads. So many of our customers actually have many different applications that they protect on HYCU, and it's really simple and easy for them because everything is available under a single roof. Then we have the last one is the NPS, which we are very proud of, which is 91. And that essentially means that we are very, very customer centric, very customer focused, and we want to ensure that our customers are always secure, especially in the times of recovery when something's gone wrong, which is a very, very stressful period. We want to ensure that we're always there for the customer and that it's very simple with HYCU, and that as a team, as you know, we also have the people supporting the customers to ensure that they're back on their feet as soon as possible. So with that, there are a couple of things that you can get access to with these QR codes. The first one is the data sheet. So feel free to scan this QR code to get access to our data sheet, download, and you can access more details. You can get more details on the solution. Or you can also explore our product tour, which is a click-through tour for you to understand how the overall flow looks like. Okay. So if there are any questions, we could take the questions right now. Okay, one of the questions I can see is, do we support any other S3 compatible storage? So yes, we do. So beyond your AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, you can also bring in something like a Wasabi, which is an S3 compatible storage, or any other S3 compatible on-prem storage as well. So we do have that option. We do, of course, recommend sticking with the top three because you have more flexibility with the location or the region, but you can, of course, bring in other storage options as well. Okay, I guess I can see no other questions, but I hope the session was insightful. Of course, there's going to be a recording available to you at all times, so you can feel free to watch this video later as well. And if you have any further questions, you can reach out to us via the website. You can also book a demo with us to get a personalized demo in terms of how the entire the application or solution works and how you can actually start protecting your M365 data. All right, thank you, and have a good day, guys. Thank you.